Welcome back to Voices of Montana. Many thanks going out to Montana's lone congressman, Greg Gianforte, and I am lucky enough to have in studio Dr. Al Olszewski from Kalispell, third-generation Montanan, born in Great Falls, son of a carpenter and great-grandson of farmers and miners who pioneered central Montana and the Highline, Air Force veteran, and for over the past 30 years, he's cared for over 100,000 patients and was awarded, Johnny, I did not know this, but Dr. Al, who's in the house, was actually awarded last year Flathead's Best Orthopedic Surgeon Award. Battle-tested state legislator from Kalispell. He sits on the Ag, Livestock, and Irrigation, which we're going to be talking about, Finance and Claims, Public Health, Welfare and Safety, Rules, and Joint Health and Human Services. Al Olszewski running for Senate. Thank you, Al, for coming in. Good to see you again.
Hey, John, it's great to be here.
Let's get right into this. You heard our talk with our congressman, and he was talking about VFW and some of the talks that he's had, and even some of the ex-military having to wait for tests now to see if you're sick. Well, that is heartbreaking. You have been in the Air Force, and you've seen a lot. Tell me about your Air Force career and about the VFW.
Well, again, I fortunately in 1984, if we go way back, Ronald Reagan was president, and he had a call to arms. He said, "We got to fight the evil empire." And through his motivation and his calling, I joined the United States Air Force as a senior at Carroll College. From there, I was entered the Air Force, and I was trained to become not only a flight surgeon, but a rapid mobility trauma surgeon. And for 13 years, I spent my time fixing warriors like we see in the VFW as well as in the American Legion, and we fixed them whether they were broken or wounded. And, even today, while I'm in Kalispell, I take care of the veterans that are unable to be taken care of by the VA because the waiting line is way too long.
You're a doctor. How do we fix Obamacare? And anything else about the military you want to jump in? Because you have a great story about the Oklahoma City bombings, that tragedy right then. But just to prove to our listeners how important you were, and still are, but with how important you were to the Air Force, can you tell us that story?
Okay. It's been almost 23 years. It was April 19th. It's a day that's hard to forget. I was an orthopedic surgeon. I was operating, and I got ordered right out of the operating room with my patient open on the table. I had to get someone to come in. It was not a drill. I was pulled downstairs, and they said, "Look, we're leaving. Grab your bags." At that time, I was on a rapid mobility force, and we had to leave at a moment's notice. There was about 30 of us. They took us over to the airplanes to be taken up in the air. They didn't tell us where we were going, and they put half of us on one airplane and half on the other. And when I asked why, they said it was because in case one airplane doesn't make it. So when we were in the air, they said that there was an explosion in Oklahoma City, April 19th, 1995. And at that point, they said, "We don't know the casualty rate. We don't know if this is going to be an isolated explosion, but we're going to Tinker Air Force Base. We're setting up our rapid mobility hospital, and we're going to augment the medical community in Oklahoma City." So we got there, and as a drill, we put everything together. Within an hour, we were a fully operational, battle-ready MASH hospital. And at that time, our scout team came back from the command center down by the Alfred E. Murray Federal Building, and they said, "Stand down." And our jaws dropped. So what do you mean stand down? They said, "Look, that explosion was so devastated, either you were dead or you walked away with scratches. There is nothing for us to do here." And we lost 19 preschool kids in that building. We lost 168 good Americans in that building. And at that point, I was devastated and never forgot what domestic terrorism was. And you know what? They didn't use an assault rifle. They didn't use a handgun. They used a truckload of fertilizer, assault fertilizer. Think about that, John.
Yeah.
And that really set the tone for the rest of my life about trying to deal with the enemies that are going against our country.
Boy, I'll tell you, that's really quite a story right there, I'll tell you. I'm talking with Dr. Al Olszewski out of Kalispell. He is running for Senate. And what do we got? We got John. Yeah, let's go to John, who is he's gone, isn't he? Al, I want to ask you a little bit. I want to get into CSKT, so we're certainly going to do that. But I want to ask you about healthcare in America. You have a perspective that I don't know if anybody else has. You're behind the scenes, living and breathing it. What's wrong with our healthcare?
Well, I'm one of the last of the old-time physicians and surgeons. I was trained that, once again, healthcare is individual. It's all about the person in front of me. And we do everything we can with the resources we have to bring about the best improvement in their care or to cure them. And what we've seen is that Obama and the National Democratic Party has created an experiment in healthcare that has failed. I mean, it's killing us in the pocketbook. It has good intentions, but it's not working. And let's put it this way. The United States has the largest, we are really, as a government, the largest healthcare insurance company in the world. And we happen to have an army. I mean, what is this? We're not supposed to be a healthcare insurance company. And that's the problem. So what we have to do to fix this is we have to undo what the damages of Obamacare. We're going to have to tear down regulations so that doctors and nurses and hospitals are paying attention again to the patient in front of them. It's patient-centered and not to the government to see if they're going to be thrown in jail or have to pay fines of millions of dollars. And you know what? We're going to have to fix our tax system so that we have an equal opportunity to use what we pay for our health insurance and as a tax break. I mean, if you're an employer-sponsored healthcare, it's tax-free. But if you're a hardworking small business owner that's self-employed, you have to pay full price of your healthcare, and there's no tax benefits. And you know what? And if you don't want to work and you're an able-bodied person in Montana and you've decided that it's not for me to work, I'm just going to hang out and hunt and fish, we give you your health care, your dental care, and your vision care for free. It just is unfair.
1 in 7 working-age adults in the state of Montana is now enrolled in the state Medicaid expansion program. Obviously, Montana's largest insurance company is the state of Montana.
Holy cow. Bingo, Ben. I mean, what you're seeing, 1 out of 7, that's just Medicaid expansion. If you add up traditional Medicaid and the expansion, it's 260, almost 270,000 Montanans are getting free health care through the Medicaid program. But here's the cost. It's killing and it's depriving the people, our most vulnerable, our developmentally disabled, our elderly, and our most young, and our single mothers who are pregnant, of actually getting the care they need. The traditional, especially our developmentally disabled, you're seeing it. They're on waiting lists. They're trying to get absolutely needed care to fix and help those families, and they're waiting years. You know what? Our case management system is collapsing. Why? Because our government, our executive branch has decided to take all that money from valuable services for our developmentally disabled, and they're going to use it to shore up their agency instead of laying off workers in the administration like they should. It is patently unfair and unconscionable, and we've got to get this right and fix this.
I want to talk about Dodd-Frank back in 2010. I remember John Tester saying that this would not harm Montana a bit. Dodd-Frank. 2010. Look it up. Let me ask you this. Do you think Mr. Tester has poor judgment, or does he have blind faith in the Democratic Party?
You know, John is a common sense Montanan. He's a teacher. I'm believing that he has good judgment. I think, mostly good judgment. I think what he's doing is he's following blindly the National Democratic Party agenda. And, he did say, let's put it this way. Dodd-Frank is Obamacare for banks. Bingo. It's the same playbook, and it's being run in a different industry. The overregulation is killing small community banks, the mom-and-pop operations, and that's got to stop. He said it wasn't going to hurt Montana, but it has. Western Montana, Eastern Montana, in Polson, where I'm the state senator, we have had banks what they basically have done is they sold out to larger corporate banks. And you know what? They are the lifeblood of those small communities. They know the relationships with their customers, and they make independent decisions to risk to loan local money to local people. Well, that's no longer the case. The government decides if they can loan money. And that's got to stop. So what's John going to do? He says he's going to fix the mess he created. Well, here's my thought. He's asking Montana, the people of Montana, for another loan, a loan of goodwill for this situation. I think we need to tell him that his loan's been denied.
I'm talking with Al Olszewski out of Kalispell, third-generation Montanan, born in Great Falls, son of a carpenter and great-grandson of farmers and miners who pioneered central Montana and the High Line. 32 minutes past the hour. Let's go to Steve in Kalispell, line 1. Steve, you're on with Al Olszewski.
Hi, Dr. Al. I can't tell you how much I enjoy your letters to the editor here in the Flathead. What you've just described can describe almost every issue, agency, subject, or whatever you want to put your finger on in this country. So I'm going to go to natural resource policy, if you don't mind.
Okay.
We have an agency now, the Forest Service, and also the Department of Interior, whose employees now are embroiled in sexual harassment cases. Now, I don't know why any two agencies should have that big of a problem, other than that's the only problem they have, in that their jobs have been so taken from them, so subjected to court rulings, and so subject to sue and settle lawsuits that they've got nothing better to do, quite frankly. And I want to come back to the point where Greg and Senator Daines have brought this legislation now to release these WSAs. And that's a great move. I've talked to their staff. They say, well, it's a good first step. And it's only one step. All it's going to do is change the designation on the maps. Those lands are going to be no more accessible after the designations change than any other part of the Forest Service or the BLM for that matter, because those policies haven't changed. The laws that let these people sue us in court are not going to change, and until they do, nothing changes. So the mess that agency or those agencies that are in are the same messes that progressive politics has put everything in our lives in danger for the last 100 years, and that has to change. And one more comment. A steel worker union official made the comment this morning based on what Donald Trump has done for the steel industry in this country. And he said the Democrats haven't done this for us in 30 years.
So you're right, Steve. So, hey, what I would love to see is President Trump, he needs to give us the same kind of consideration. And I'd like to see him treat our timber industry, our sawyers, our hookers. And I would love to see something like that. Just call attention to the fact that northwestern Montana, western Montana, even in eastern Montana, there was sawdust all over, and that helped pay for our infrastructure and for our schools. And you know what? That is an industry that's almost gone extinct, and that's got to stop. So go ahead, John.
Dr. Al Olszewski from Kalispell is be right back after this.
Voices of Montana continues right after this. Call 1-866-627-5483 and join Montana's only statewide radio talk show, Voices of Montana, and your host, John Arneson.
Well, thank you very much. I did get a message from the Gallatin County Republican State Committee, and Gallatin and Madison County Republicans are honored to have Harriet Hagman, candidate for governor of Wyoming, as their principal speaker at their Lincoln Reagan Day dinner on March the 24th at the Grand Tree Inn in Bozeman. That, very interesting. She fights against regulation without representation. This is so important of those of us are here in the West. All right, couple texts to get to. Dr. and Mr. Olszewski, do you support or oppose the fair tax plan?
Well, once again, the fair tax plan is something where we replace the income tax system that we have with a consumption tax. And you know what? I'm always open, and I feel that we may have to do something, but such as a consumption tax. I mean, I'm open to it. But here's the thing. It can never be in conjunction with an income tax. It has to replace that. And because what we have is, and it's happening in Montana, we have a traditional economy that is becoming a smaller part of our economy. The service economy is exploding, and we have no way to find a way to create or tax it to create a revenue. So what's happening? We can't fill your potholes. We cannot pay for our schools, and we're having a hard time paying for what? Health care for all those people that we've promised them the health care. So what we have to do is we have to relook at how we tax ourselves. And once again, I'm all about less taxes. That money belongs to you. And what we need to do is decide what we're going to do and prioritize and pay for those things that are in the common good of the people and not just for certain groups of people.
Text. How does the doctor feel about a Montana medical school?
Okay, well, I am the product of Montana's medical school. I went to the WWAMI program. It's a regional program with the University of Washington, and I believe in it. And that has returned over 75, I believe it's 70 to 75% of those medical students have come back to Montana to care for our community, and I think that's very successful. We had an issue with a proposal of a medical school that was going to be in Great Falls, and as I told people, again, I'm open to it. We need more doctors, but here's the deal. We need to make sure that when they created or they proposed the system that we didn't cannibalize our nursing programs to try to create clinical protocols for this issue. I commend Great Falls and the benefit system. They're working with a medical school that's now going to be created in Idaho, but they're going to bring those people here for rotations. And when they see Great Falls and they see Central Montana, I'm expecting we're going to keep a lot of them here.
Oh, that's good. Al Olszewski, he is a battle-tested state legislator from Kalispell. He sits on the Ag, Livestock, and Irrigation Board, along with Finance and Claims, Public Health, Welfare and Safety, Rules, Joint Health, and Human Services. I want to talk about you sitting on the Ag, Livestock, and Irrigation Board. Did you enjoy that?
You know, being on the Senate Ag Committee, I did. I myself am not a farmer or rancher, but my parents, my mom or my dad came off of the farm. My cousins still, farm the homesteads on both sides of the family in Blaine County and down in Rainsford, Montana, in the Judith Basin area. And so I enjoyed it. It gave me an opportunity to continue to support agricultural and ranching. And here, let's look at it here. If we combine Health and Human Services as a doctor and my state ag committee, here's the message. If you want to improve the health care of Montanans, eat more beef. That's labeled with Made in Montana label. So that's how we're going to improve the health of Montanans.
There you go. Let's talk about the CSKT. Some of your opponents are against it. Some are for it. I think everybody knows that you are against the CSKT as it is now. Tell us the story.
Well, I got involved in the fray in 2015 as a state representative for Kalispell in the northern part or the northwest part of the Flathead Lake region, House District 11. And let me just put it very clear. What we have is we have a Montana Constitution that states clearly that the water belongs to the people and is used in its enjoyment to the people. This water is appropriated to the people for its use. And what we have in the CSKT Tribe Compact is that we have a taking or giving of Montana's property to a third party. And they do it without any remuneration, and that is unconstitutional. So this is a property right that of mine. I have a property right that for my appropriation of my water in the Flathead Valley that is in essence will be given to a tribe, 5,000 members that live 90 miles away from me, and I'm off the reservation. So it's a property rights taking. It's unconstitutional. I don't care if you give that land or that property right to a sovereign nation of Canada, or you give it to the irrigators, or you give it to Polson or Kalispell, Missoula, or to Great Falls, or even give it to Ekalaka. The fact is that's a third party. That water belongs to Montana, and this compact has to be stopped.
What is Aboriginal water rights?
Well, that is a new concept that is created within this compact that's never seen before. That means that the first peoples of this country, the Native Americans, are given the water rights that belong to wherever they roamed. And for the CSKT tribe, that is the headwaters of the Columbia River. That means for the Blackfeet tribe, if they can get Aboriginal water rights, it's the headwaters of the Missouri River. And that means for the Crow tribe, it's the headwaters of the Yellowstone River. So you can see, if you set the precedent of Aboriginal water rights, what happens is that not tomorrow, not next year, but in 20, 30, or 50 years, the water of Montana will no longer belong to Montana by precedent. It'll belong to third-party sovereign entities within the state that then will get to have the ability to sell that water back to us. And water is the most important resource, the most valuable resource in this world. There's nothing more valuable. And again, it belongs to Montana. It should stay with Montana.
Let's go to Zim, line 2, Columbia Falls, Montana. Zim, you're on the air with Al Olszewski.
Well, good morning, John and Doc and brother Air Force veteran Doc.
Hoorah there, Zim.
From the shores of Tripoli.
15 SPS 72 to 76 and Honor Guard and
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're my pleasure. Hey, Doc, I want to give a plug to the those evil people at the Kalispell VA clinic. They are awesome. They are incredible. They are overworked to the dadgum bone, and the poor staffing there. They really are. I was being facetious, of course, with evil, but they work their butts off, and they are so overwhelmed. And we've got to expand. That place is busting out at the seams and trying to keep good people. My gosh, we've even got my original Doc, Doc Swanson, who's retired after well over 30 years. He still comes back in the spring and summer to help out because he's so dedicated. And the nursing staff, I mean, everybody from answering the dadgum phones, they don't have enough staffing, and the building itself isn't big enough anymore. And until we can expand it somehow, some way. Let's get the choice program going and get us vets seen and stuff. I've been very, very fortunate in that I've had very, very good luck with the system, believe it or not.
You know, Zim, I take the choice. I am an advocate for the choice program as a great stopgap to get you the service. As for Flathead Orthopedics, I have time and time again have served our vets through that system to give them prompt and immediate attention for their needs. Harvey Swanson, you're out there. Thank you for your service to the Flathead Valley and to our vets. There's no doubt that you have been a physician of much compassion and dedication, along with all the other providers that work there. But here's the problem. They're overworked because they're spending more time dealing with the regulations of the government than they are to taking care of you. We have lost 30 to 40% of our productivity of patient care, direct patient care. Why? Because we have to fill out endless reams of paperwork to tell them how we took care of you. And that's got to stop. The money has to be spent on taking care of you. Because why? Those frontline workers are compassionate. But as a bureaucracy, there is no compassion. So the money needs to get to the front lines and has to stay out of the bureaucracy, Zim. And that's one of the ways we fix the VA.
And I have to apologize to you and Zim and everybody else out there, part of the Air Force, because I obviously sang the Marine hymn, didn't I?
You know what?
I was wondering why you were looking at me like I was crazy.
No, John, we can never go wrong with the Marine hymn. I don't care. We're one military, we may be several branches, but we're one military and we're one family. And so we are proud for any anthem of any branch.
There you go. Thank you for bailing me out on that one. Al Olszewski is my guest. He's running for Senate. He is a Senate candidate running to be Senator of Montana. He's out of Kalispell. Air Force veteran, and for over the past 30 years, he's cared for over 100,000 patients and was awarded the 2017 Flathead Best Orthopedist Award. Welcome back, Voices of Montana, 9:50 in the morning. Let's go to, is it Joe in Helena on line 2? Let's go to Joe in Helena. Joe, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning.
Morning, Joe.
I just want to throw out a quick endorsement for Dr. Al Olszewski, and I have one question. The endorsement, I grew up with the Olszewski family in Great Falls. I went to St. Luke's with the whole family, and he and his family are stand-up, straight Montana shooters, and I'm really, really happy he's running.
Good. Thank you.
Both my parents are patients of his since they moved up to Swan Lake. Both my parents are patients of his.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to know where he stood on Medicaid and Medicare for the mentally ill. My wife is a social worker, and sometimes we differ on our opinions. conservative, but she's relies heavily on Medicaid and Medicare for their mental health patients.
Good question. Thank you, Joe.
Well, Joe, thank you for honoring my family with those comments. That's very gracious of you. So thank you. Mental health. There is no doubt that whether we're talking about suicide, whether we're talking about violence in the workplace, or mass school shootings, mental health is an issue that has been in the shadows for too long. It's been the stepchild of dealing with appropriations. And really what's got to happen is we need to give mental health its due. We need to take care of these people. By taking care of people with mental health, we take care of our community, and we'll be a stronger, vibrant community. Unfortunately, the only avenues or venues that we have to care or to pay for mental health care is Medicaid and Medicare. Here's our issue. It doesn't pay enough money to do this. We have shortages of physicians, counselors, psychologists because they can't afford to make a living on what Medicare and Medicaid pays them. So here's my belief. My belief is we need to take that out of Medicare and Medicaid. We're going to have to find a rational way to pay appropriately for our health care, our mental health care. And then it's a moot point with what happens with Medicare and Medicaid. The fact is we've used systems that were designed for taking care of the elderly or for our most vulnerable, and we've blown up those systems we've hijacked them to try to do something good with them elsewhere. And that experiment has failed. So let's fix that broken system. Joe, I hope that answers your question.
Let's go to Carrie in Big Fork, line 3. Good morning, Carrie. Hello, good morning. You're on the air. Voices of Montana.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Hey, you're on the air.
Yeah, so I'm glad Dr. O said that he's a fan of reducing taxes. I'm pretty much a fan of tax cuts across the board, and the president's plan, gave tax cuts to health insurance companies, but now our premiums seem to be going up, and Auditor Rosendale doesn't seem to be doing anything about it. So I'm just wondering how it's fair for those health insurance companies to get tax cuts when we're paying more in our premiums, and what the doctor thinks about that.
Thank you very much for the question.
Again, what we have to try to do is hold corporations to the fire in this situation. What we need to do is push hard for premium reductions. And whether it is through with the recent tax cuts that go to all corporations, whether it is because that there's been a delay in the premium tax that the healthcare insurance companies have fought and lobbied so hard for, that money needs to not just trickle down back to the customer. That money needs to come down in a waterfall. Because simply stated, it used to be that if you broke your leg, you might go bankrupt. Now what happens is you're going bankrupt just paying for your health care premiums. We are at the tipping point of collapsing one of the best healthcare systems in the world. And why? Because of people, whether through greed or through the ability that they have no common sense and they're not paying attention to the big system. We've got to fix it, and it's got to be fixed now, not 10 years from now.
We're going to take a call from somebody listening on the computer, either from one of our radio affiliates or voicesofmontana.com. Let's go to Northern California and Ron. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, sir. I've been listening, and my history in the current is working with students on the knowwhat'sinit.org project, and that focuses on bioaccumulation of toxins and homeless events and a whole sorts of things. Out here in Northern California, in the major cities, we have 46% of the homeless are veterans. And when you talk about health care and you talk about mental health care, I, for over a decade, was a court-appointed volunteer conservator for people from the military and through public and private hospitals with health care problems that involved mental health.
Thank you for doing that.
Those were revolving doors. We need a national health care program that focuses on that and bring about retired people, seniors as well here. We have a right to be out there, and those with experience to become conservators and help guide those with mental health problems and get them into hospital when they need it, and fight for them staying in hospital instead of being in 1-2 days and out the door again to evolve back in society unprepared.
Okay, Ron, thank you very much. We're running out of time.
So,
Go ahead.
So, John, in a heartbeat, hey, we need as many conservatives as we can in Montana. Why don't you move on up here? We love your spirit.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in this situation, a national health care system. Remember, if you're from England, you know, Johnny, what do you think? If you're from England, you're a subject of the Queen. And so the government can provide you your health care, and you know what? They treat you like your child. It's very matriarchal or patriarchal. Here's the deal. In the United States, the government is at the service of the people of our country. And if they control our health care, it's like taking the leash off of the Rottweiler, giving the Rottweiler the leash and putting the collar on the owner. It's backwards. Yes, we do need to work for a rational and a good, affordable healthcare system, but putting that power into the hands of the government is absolutely wrong.
Just a few seconds to go. Final words from you, sir.
Okay. Well, here it is. I'm Al Olszewski. I am running for the United States Senate. As you know, I'm pretty boring, but I'd rather talk about other issues than myself. I can really use your prayers, your support, and yes, your vote come June 5th for Al Olszewski, U.S. Senate. Thank you very much.